What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Tides of Annihilation, a game that was kind of a standout from the state of play. Now, I was actually watching the thing at the time on just my phone, and when I saw this, it kind of did stand out. And then when you look online, and actually, if you look at some of the key metrics out there, this is definitely one of the games that kind of jumped out at people. You look at some of the trailer kind of views of some of even the Borderlands, of the world, and this game jumped out. This game has more views than it can considerable amount of other games, and it probably for good reason, and hence kind of the title and kind of the central theme of this video. This is probably a game we have to start paying attention to. I saw one article, I think it was actually Insider Gaming. They actually, I think this studio and this game went to Gamescom back in August, and outlets were able to interview them, but they had to hold off on the interview for actually it seems like 6+ months, right? So they got to get interviewed, and we're gonna go through one of the interviews because they asked them very specific questions: length, the amount of bosses, things like that. But just kind of the style of this game, I do think stands out, and to me, it reminds me of a thing like Stellar Blade. It kind of gives like the size discrepancy, to some of the bigger monsters you can kind of see behind me. Reminds me of even Shadow of the Colossus. It's got just a nice visual palette to it. The combat, Devil May Cry, kind of alike, right? You can kind of see those influences. It looks really good, but Stellar Blade, you think to maybe a Black Myth Wukong. Some of these games that, and I say that for more than one reason. You could say Stellar Blade also because of Eve and the look of the characters and stuff, but the combat and facing off kind of on this gauntlet of bosses, right? Or honestly, one of the ways I'm trying to compare it to Black Myth or Stellar Blade, how about just companies that have kind of popped out of nowhere and just have delivered really solid, at worst, games, right? We're actually, I think, about to see it in a few months with Expedition 33, right? Now, it's from some people that did some other things, but we've had a couple studios that have popped off and have kind of put to shame, other studios that make the same types of games. We've seen studios just kind of pop off and just do it for their very first time and do it quite successfully. So that's kind of what this game, just kind of its persona, it kind of is what it reminds me of. It feels like a game that's gonna come out and it's gonna do quite well for itself, and it's just kind of the genre that it's in, right? The combat does look really, really cool. There is something to that Black Myth Stellar Blade type thing. I mean, and it's not just those two, but those are two recent examples, right? Where you fight a group of enemies and you fight a boss, and the game kind of really prides itself on, okay, you're gonna have to face 20, 30, 40 bosses, and they're all gonna be slightly different. It's gonna put you through a little bit of a challenge, right? That's what this game kind of gives off. But I want to go to this specific article here. Again, I think a really good just interview and just the questions that were asked. So let's kind of go through some of them here. Tides of Annihilation looks amazing. Is the combat more like Devil May Cry Bayonetta or like Souls games? And they say the combat gameplay is definitely more like Devil May Cry. Unlike most Souls-like titles, we also have difficulty mode selection. From the concept, we have implemented fairly simple controls for those players who would like to actually play action games without being hardcore users. Do you have any role-playing elements in the game, like leveling up? They say yes, skill trees and levels, but it's not heavy on that, like an action RPG or Souls-like game. Can you get better equipment? They say yes. They ask if the game will be released simultaneously on all platforms, and the answer is yes, or they ideally like to do it. They ask how many weapons, 4, can you share which ones? Fists, swords, bows, and they forget the fourth one. And then they talk about the setting, and they say that this game and then Black Myth Wukong are two projects invested in by Tencent. So they set different expectations. Black Myth did the Chinese audience, but for this one, it's a Western audience. So it shows the Arthurian legends, and then they say, can you share the game's current development progress? Now we are still in alpha stage. At the end of this year, 2024, we are going into the beta phase with a tentative launch window of 2026. What's the length? There should be over 30 hours of gameplay on average. And then how many bosses will there be? Over 30, each with their own abilities. Players will have to prepare for very challenging boss fights. So, you kind of get, because I see a lot of articles that are saying, oh, we don't know the release. Well, it is tentative and it can move. And this was, again, halfway through last year, and now we're already almost there, in 2025. But a lot can change, right? So I would probably set your expectations in the same way that Phantom Blade Zero, you cross your fingers and you pray that that's a fall 2026 game. Honestly, do the same thing here, right? Maybe just assume it's roughly 2 years out, maybe slightly less, like best case scenario, but I sense potential, okay? And I think I got my finger on the pulse where it's like, you know, you could see with Stellar Blade years ago, you could see with Black Myth, you can see with Phantom Blade Zero, you're seeing it actually, and it's good, it's actually a good sign. You're seeing it happen more and more and more. Some of these games just kind of have something, they're kind of popping off. You can kind of isolate them and say, okay, that's one to watch, and there's actually maybe something there to that game. So I'm excited for this game. It looks really, really cool. Definitely, I would say one of the standouts of this. As I said, I said yesterday, the state of play was good when it came to third-party stuff. There was a wide variety. It gave me the release dates I was looking for. They definitely did that part of it. I was disappointed with some other parts to it, but I don't want to get into that. This game looks great. And by the way, at the time this video is going live, they're actually going to show 11 minutes of gameplay, but it's like late at night. It's actually 11 my time. I think it's 10 p.m. Pacific is when they're going to show through IGN 11 minutes of footage. So I'll watch it, and then potentially tomorrow we can do another video on the game, and we'll talk about that gameplay, okay? You let me know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.